Hi guys, my name is CanadienSaintNk. This is the Frostnite build that I like to do. Big shout out to my Minority Pharaohs, Wrathborn1, and DJ Nexus. I'll put their links and information in the bio below when I get the chance. And they helped me test this out last night, and I had a lot of fun doing it. I think we had a lot of fun doing and kind of pushing the higher times of Frostnite. I think we ended up 121, but if we could have avoided the takers better, we probably would have lasted a lot longer because the trap tunnels really weren't buckling. It was just the takers flying over.
We're not ready to expand, but it never hurts to prepare.
So,
check out this console menu to deposit resources, or return to the map. You can leave anytime by selecting Leave with Party from the Storm Shield console.
Thank you, Ray. So you load in. You're probably going to load in right about here. And this is going to be the burner. So we're going to use a little bit of imagination. So I'm going to mark it as base so we all know it's the burner. I would put my base down on it, but we can't storm shields so that we can't infinitely heals. I would recommend putting stone on the outside and steel inside if you're doing power base. I would recommend, if you are doing power base, I'd recommend just do it all out of steel anyways, because steel is going to be hard to come by. Get your teammates. A little bit of lag here. That's okay. It's okay. That's Twitch. That's just the nature and Twitch, I should say. So you want to put a. I'm not going to do that because I don't have the materials for that kind of shenanigans. This is your base. Now everything as far as north, east, south, and west is geographically enough for us to be making this build. I even made a makeshift barn here for us because that's where the barn is in the southwest. You'll notice a pond here. I've covered it in metal. These are all squares that you must put on the ground if you want to build in this direction. If you don't put them there, then what will end up happening is they'll start beating against the floors themselves because there's this little lip where they can't actually get up and over. So I mean, you can use that little lip as like a double funneling point downward, but it's going to be tough, you know, because if you put a wall launcher here and you want to make a little bit of a timeout, as David Dean likes to call them, you would find that they would actually catch on this lip. Not all the time, just generally about 30 to 40% of the time they would catch on it, depending on the impact of your wall launchers. So putting these metal square, putting squares down over the pond itself is key. For those wondering, it's I believe it's a 6x6, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, aside from a little bit of a lag jump there, I'm pretty sure that was 6. Yep, so it's a 6x6 area. Just cover the pond. It doesn't have to be in metal. I know metal is very hard to come by. It can be in wood, it can be in stone. Just keep in mind these are floors you don't want to break. So if you blow them up with or I should say when, because somebody's going to do it, let's be honest, just make sure to replace as soon as possible. Even if you can't make the trap tunnel itself, just replace those floors, because if they jump down into it, you're just going to get more floors broken along the way because they won't be able to get out unless they break floors. And at that point, you're going to start losing more and more materials afterwards. So keep this little plant up, if you will. To the northwest, we have a hill of stone here. A couple trees. There's a little water tower with a bucket of nuts and bolts underneath it. I'm going to build a little stairs here so we can get up and kind of see. There is a little hill here that we can walk up. We're going to want to block this off eventually. I'll outline that in the build. There's a little lip down here. And it'll be characterized by the fact that there will be a metal chain link fence along the way here with a power coupling over there and a couple wooden boxes over here. So this is pretty much the exact layout. It's even done down to a square. So from this to the lip is 1, 2, 3, 4 squares. So obviously there's not a lot of room on this side. There's not even a lot of room on the north side. As we come over here, there's actually a big old cliff. It goes like here. And there's this cave down here. Now they can't actually walk up this slant, but I did a slant here to show that we can get up there. There's like one little path that they can walk up here, so we're going to leave an option open for them to kind of come in from here, but it's not a high traffic area, so it's not something we need to be extremely worried about in the long run. Okay, well, the easiest part of this is setting up the outside barrier first. I should mention here that there is a little bit of a lip here. This doesn't, yeah, so it's more like this. So they generally tend to walk through this center path just because it's a lot smoother. There's these sides here which they don't really want to do. They won't. They're gonna spawn. Sorry, I should go to the spawns here. They're gonna spawn. Yeah. This will be as close as they spawn. This area right here. But very little over here. Like if we could slant this even. And that's of course going to change a little bit. Sometimes they'll spawn a little bit further over there, but that's a different spawn to this one. Because they do spawn in just about a 360-degree radius, about that distance away, sometimes a little bit further on some sides. So they won't walk up here, just to drop down here and then walk up here. So we're definitely going to block this off, because that's very minimal aggro on this side. So if we block that off, it's good. We're going to block this off. Not by much, I believe.
What to build?
And for those of you wondering, I'm going to call this the pistol build, and you'll see why I call it the pistol build as we start building some of the trap tunnels themselves. This is just, it kind of keeps going out over here. And then I think eventually there's like a little ledge here, but it's very angular and it kind of shoots off more to the northeast afterwards. So there's a lot of open area. They don't spawn in the open area. Generally they spawn on the cliff itself. So you don't want to build upwards to it and kind of get stuck with it, but you do have a lot of room here to kind of build outwards if you wish. So one of the things you'll notice I'm doing is okay, I didn't, whoops. Okay, one of the things you want to do when building your outer layers is choose different materials. Alternate between metal and stone. What this will do is if there's a exclusive water wave and you have this stone barrier to block them from coming here, we're essentially forcing them around here, and we'll force them a little bit more even. So having the multi-layer of metal, which is the highest deterrent, even if there's nature, it's the highest deterring boundary out there. That's not something that should be open. So having alternating materials will stop them from beating against this potentially. As you get later in the game, as you get more crafting materials, you could even put wall launchers on these, and that'll increase, or that'll decrease the aggro your boundaries will generate. Any wall with a wall launcher will be a deterrent, especially for smashers. Smashers are obviously going to be the biggest ones that'll charge into these. As far as regular husky husks go and little husks, they're only going to charge into those if you're standing inside of them. So like let's say you're standing right here, little husks will come up and they'll start beating against it, and as the health starts getting weaker and weaker, maybe a husky husk starts coming over and then he'll start beating against it if you're just standing here, and then of course a smaller husk will come in and they'll beat against it too. So what we want to do is set up a pistol. So if you guys, I don't know if you guys have the aerial imagination here. This is a very blocky pistol, I will say that. It's a little bit more like a boomerang, but I'm not from Australia, so I'm not going to steal their thunder from down under. Maybe I'll let Cylon do that. But this is a pistol build. So if Cylon ever wants to call it a boomerang build, I will allow him to. This will look different on every single corner, but it will also be incredibly similar. And that will be because of the manner in which we're forcing them into the tunnels. So at the end here, we could actually add a little bit. And what we want to do is gas. You could put a electric field here if you wanted to. So if you're going to be facing water husks, I generally like to put gas, just because some things walk through. So I'm going to opt for gas. I'm putting 106s down because I don't want to waste my 130s just showing you do it. Putting the double wall launchers. If you are into the higher rounds and this tunnel is still obviously going to be active, you might want to opt to put a wall launcher on this wall. However, in the lower rounds, some 106 wall dynamos will be more than enough. I don't want that. This would be too much pathing, if you will. So what's going to happen is, you see here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares here. We're going to see a potential wave spawn in potentially over here. Probably this will be as close as they spawn. Probably spawn a little bit farther back. And then of course, if we don't reinforce this enough, then they could break in. So this would be the only area that I could think of that would absolutely need the wall launchers. And I'd recommend just doing it like this, because if they're going to walk all the way over here, then they're going to start coming all the way over here. What the wall launchers will do, even if there's a smasher, these are fully perked up 106s, by the way. This mode is generally meant for level 100 players or people doing the Frostnite mode at level 100. So what's going to happen is this will toss them back at least 3 squares, sometimes 3.5 or 4 squares if it crits. Thought I saw something flying in the sky. So this will pretty much reset their aggro on the wall. It's the center. They can still come back and beat against it if they spawn, dead on with it. Generally, though, they're going to start moving towards the trap tunnels here because that's a lot more convenient for them. We're going to leave a lot of space open for it. And then we're going to start moving forward with it. So we put stone here, so we're going to reinforce it with metal on either side, and then another one of stone in the background. Metal on the sides here is because if they broke this stone, then they can just walk through it. Stairs wouldn't really be a deterrent for them. Also, this is going to be part of our trap tunnel anyways. A little bit extra sturdy. Won't be bad. And again, we're setting up a pistol trap tunnel. Normally, if you have ever watched my what do I want here? So this one, we're going to do it like this, and I want something like this, therefore I want wall launcher right here. Okay. If you watch my Twine Peaks Storm Shield Defense tutorials, you know that I like to do a what I call a 2x2, which is just essentially one of these, which David Dean has taken to coining as a timeout room, but double stacked. Both because that's the most efficient way to do that kind of build. Otherwise, too many enemies are just going to fall through this one square. However, if double stack and we make another stack over here, what ends up happening is we start getting really, especially on these short sides on the east and the west, getting super close to the base. And on the west side, we won't be able to do it even. We do need to reinforce those, otherwise the smasher is going to get tossed in there and he's going to be like, I'm not walking all the way out of here. Do it. And you could always opt to not put this down and make a timeout room behind this wall launcher. And then hopefully their aggro doesn't. But the level 160, level 140, level 150s, you're going to find they don't path properly.
Nope.
Well, properly, quote unquote. But they don't path the way that you want them to. I know that from my Twine Peaks 140s. They're going to be very difficult. So the more resistance you can give them, the better. And it's not like this trap tunnel is going to let any of the Husks through, even all the way up, you know, to 2 hours or so. The only way it's going to let things through is, one, if you blow up the trap tunnel, and two, if it's a smasher. So the smashers are going to make it through. They're going to come to the base, but that's why we have space here. We have killing space, as I like to say. Oh, good crack at the neck. Got to reposition a little bit here. So we got a couple pistol defenses set up. We have our boundaries set up. They have wall launchers on the outside. They are triple reinforced. If you find that they are beating against things, you could always reinforce it with a wall in the middle. I don't know why, but high-level Husks like to beat against walls that are reinforced with stairs, but stairs that aren't separated like this wall separates these two stairs. For some reason, they like just getting in there and being like, well, what do we do now? So then that's what they do, is just beat against things further. But if you put that wall there, they're just like, okay, I guess I'll walk around to the trap tunnels. And that's how they live their life. So again, you want to reinforce these as you go along. It's not super stressful to reinforce it itself. These boundaries are meant to, you know, reinforce probably all the way to 130s as level 1 walls. Put them to level 2 walls, obviously you get a little bit higher aggro, whatever you want to call it, less aggro. But generally you want to start building these as each side is attacked is best, because you're not going to have the resources early on to be building this from the start. So I mean, that's the fairly obvious point. But again, you know, you got the nice pistol look there, well, the pixelated pistol. And so we have our wall launchers on the go. I guess I didn't really flesh this out. We want to set up our wall launchers too in a manner that's going to want them to go around it. So we see here, if we launch them over here, the base is going to be, you know, directly there. But if they just walk around here, they're right in front of the base anyways, which is considered the, you know, half a tile more for them. But that's half a tile of pathing. That's half a tile they'll do. In later waves, you might want to, or you will want to, extend this one. You could keep this one because this is, again, only half a tile. But if you extend this one, because this is more like 0.7 of a tile, or 0.75 of a tile, I guess in their aggro range, you could think of it like that. Obviously, it's not actually 0.7 of a tile, it's only about half a tile anyways. But with the wall launchers, they're going to be launched all the way in the back here. So you're going to have to walk this full tile and then a half, but onto the latter half of it. So it really is like 0.7 of a tile, or 0.75 of a tile. So if you elongate that like that, then, you know, we're reaching, you know, 0.6, 0.5, even 0.55, if you will, of a tile. After that, it's more reinforcing. Did I put the dynamo on? No, I didn't. All right, I'm semi-failing here. I have 106s. They are fully perked out. Dynamos, I mean, and floor spikes. Floor spikes I just did recently, just because I had the extra stuff. I said, why not? Put some regular wall darts there. As far as dynamos go, I would recommend the full balanced build of crit damage, reload speed, durability. They will hardly ever run out just because the reload time is so long. I think it's about 8.5 seconds with the reload. Again, I can't see because my Twitch overlay is right there. That's fine. But it's enough. It's a lot of damage. I usually put wall darts on the end here, just to take out the smaller Husks, because what the smaller Husks will do is, of course, they'll just book it through here and just fire off all your traps for the big guys, or before the big guys come in. So usually the wall darts take out at least a few of them, and it kind of balances the wave out a little bit more as they come through here. If you're noticing like a really big abundance of smashers and your wall darts are down, by all means throw up some wall dynamos, but nuts and bolts are going to be a little bit heavy throughout the match. So you generally want to conserve wherever possible, and 2 dynamos and a gas trap is more than enough. As far as gas traps go, with this build specifically, I would recommend full crit damage, full crit rating, and effect duration. Yes, you know, it all adds up to minimal gains, but that's a lot. And one of the things people like to neglect is that gas trap has its own set damage. And when people think about the gas trap, what would provide set damage for the gas trap? Is that when it fires off? Well, yeah, it's when it fires off. So if you could keep them underneath this square for as long as possible, theoretically, with the crit damage, with the crit rating, you know, it's critting for 56,000. Even the affliction isn't so high. It's going to crit 4 or 5 times before they get off this square. So that's why we're creating this. And this little one by one, as I like to call it. Very uncreative names. It'll cause, it's going to cause a lot of damage, right? It's going to keep them underneath here. They can't escape unless they go back around with the floor spikes here. It's going to be very hard for them to go through it with a maxed perked wall launcher reload speed. Even without the, you know, the heavy base reload, generally smashers have a very hard time getting out of here unless they're really close to the edge here. If, let's say, the wall launcher fires off and they're right on, the wall launcher is going to fire off again before they get back up and walk out of this room. So that's just how fast wall launchers are and just how key they are in making sure everything kind of stays intact, if you will. So we're getting reasonably close to bowl length here on this side. Again, you know, we got another pistol build here. And this is going to be probably the coolest pistol build that we'll come across. And we want to reinforce this, because what's going to end up happening is they're going to come from the south side on this side. They're going to come through this tunnel. We're going to fire them off over here. Okay, and this wall is obviously going to need to be upgraded because it's not going to be reinforced on the downside. If we don't reinforce that one square over there, what's going to end up happening is they're going to be like, oh, this is easy. So the smasher is going to beat against here, and then they're going to walk through here. Obviously, you know, there's going to be a lot of traps in their way that'll deter them. But the wall launcher here is going to have a lot more stress now if they start walking through here. Obviously, this wall launcher will have a lot more stress. And then this will kind of be like the straight line for them, especially if there's a mini boss. The mini boss is, well, I mean, the mini boss will just fly through everything regardless of what there is. But
nope.
The smashers, they'll be forced to path around this, and that'll be like an extra, you know, 0.5, 0.6 of a square, and instead they would much rather just come back around and then come straight down towards the base like this, as opposed to potentially being against this. Now that's only for really high level smashers. So you got to understand that when doing this. This is going to be a little bit of a different kind of pistol build. We're going to be doing here is creating sustainable growth.
Not possible.
If you're really concerned about this early game, you could just throw a wall launcher there, or late game I should say, and then put 2 dynamos. It's really not much of an issue though. And the pièce de resistance is that. So what's going to happen is they're going to come back around. Even with this, I wouldn't put this as a full one where they got to kind of walk around. Again, you might put more pressure on this wall. Just this is fine. This gives enough time for the wall launcher to fire off. So let's say this wasn't here, and they just did like this. The wall launcher is only gonna start proccing as soon as they step onto this square. So probably about here. So you see the separation between the 2 squares right here. So this is, you know, where the wall launcher is gonna fire off, but it takes about a second to fire off anyways. So a particularly fast husk can come through here and be met. So this is why I always put these little barrier walls here with the wall launchers. Yes, it does put a little bit more stress on the wall launcher, but the wall launcher reloads so fast now, it's going to fire off anyways if they just walk through it. So at least this way it gets them. And then if they come onto this square, they're going to be well past this wall, so we don't have to worry about the wall launcher firing off and knocking them back. Even with slow spikes, they'll probably get about this far, and then it's going to knock them, you know, 3.5 squares. We're going to put a wall here as well with a dynamo. And this is kind of the extensions we're going to be adding as we go through the game. This side's not going to generate a ton of aggro, but if you want to be careful, you can put some wall launchers here. We don't want these trap tunnels to fall. Even one less dynamo can be very impactful in the long run, so keeping your trap tunnels intact will be key. I think anybody who's even browsed the game mode knows that fairly effectively. This one we could do a half wall. This one we could also do a half wall because they're not gonna walk through here, I don't believe.
Sorry.
Nah, we're gonna do this one a skinny wall just because there's so few enemies that come through here. If a smasher does come through here, I'd just rather not deal with the hassle of them potentially breaking that wall. So again, we got our floor spikes. Yeah, I use legendary stuff just because I really don't need to save on materials, to be honest with you. I'm upgrading all this, but I feel like it, so I am. Some poetry level of stuff there. So we got the double pistols here. We got it reinforced. We're gonna put a stairs here, and we're gonna get back to these stairs. 'Cause I think, yeah, we need to go back one further. That's fine. We're gonna start on this side of the pistol, and this is where it gets a little bit hairy because there's a giant freaking barn here. So I don't know if you guys know much about barns, but they're not very sturdy. So they do house a lot of animals, and so do human houses, and they're less sturdy. So you want to tear down the barn. If you don't tear down the barn, that's okay too. It's just, it messes up so many things, and it's so easy to tear down. Take the time to tear it down. If you have a couple outlanders, a couple strikers on the team, that's like three or four punches for them. Obviously not that little, but it's very, very few. Once you knock down the barn, obviously you're going to have a bunch more space here to work with. Somebody's excited outside. They're honking their horn. Yeah, so when doing the second one, you want to be careful of where the base is itself. They can't get through there, can they? Okay, so we're going to reinforce this backside. Again, I should have done anyways. And then elongate that. This side generates a lot of traffic, so I'm going to let the gas traps do most of the work. So we're going to triple dynamo it.
Yeah, not possible.
Okay. Do like one of these. You don't have much more room to go out. Like you could bring this out a couple squares, I think. Yeah, because the end of this pawn here, one more square is where they spawn. At the very tip though. So in between these two, oh, a little bit of lag. In between these two squares is generally where they'll spawn, as close to, if you will, all the way around a bit. There's a lot of traffic this side, like I said, so we're gonna double up on the gas traps, and we're also going to put some dynamos. These outside barriers don't need much, to be honest with you. So we're just gonna double up on traps where we can. You don't need to put ball darts or dynamos here. You're going to be pretty short on materials early game. This is just kind of like this is a steady pistol build. Obviously there's a lot of different ways to do it. For the most part, this is probably going to be your most efficient use of resources out there. I say well, I mean, it's 2,000 resources. That's not bad for making 1.75 directions almost. This is the troublemaker direction, if I'm being honest with you. That's weird. It's like an after effect. Whoa. Is that happening on stream too? Yeah, it is happening on stream too. Wow, that's a little bit of a difference. Wow. Either their frame rate's bad or I'm really lagging. I can't tell. Okay, well, we'll just continue on with the build and hopefully this turns out alright. What I'm going to do here actually is I'm going to go out and build a little bit on this side first. Oh, that's not fun. Okay, so it is lagging a little bit. That's fine, that's fine. I'm going to be building. This will be, hands down, probably the most concise build you'll find out there. That'll get you to at least an hour if you could manage the trap levels and your level. I'd wager probably a group of 89s who, with good teamwork could probably do this relatively easily. A bunch of strikers, because strikers will just one-shot everything anyways with their punch. This side is very troublesome, I will say. Oh, I forgot to add the cliff here. So this side is troublesome because there's not a whole lot of room. So obviously we have this side here. We're just going to actually block off. That was weird. Okay. So we want to block this off as thoroughly as possible. Actually, I could probably do that a little bit better. So again, we're alternating materials to block it off.
Yeah, not possible.
I'm adding this part. You definitely want to take this to level 3 as soon as possible. If you block it off, even, you know, high level 200 Husk won't be starting to beat against it. If you were really worried about it, you could add a stairs there and that. They won't really beat against this if they don't have to. So they would much rather beat against the front of the hillside itself. So if you could block off the hillside and put a backward stairs there, that'll be fine. I think this actually goes out like this. I have to check and see in a bit here. But this side is difficult because there's this little cliff here, and I don't think it goes out 3 squares. I think it cuts in like that. And then there starts to be a little bit of an angled hill back there, and then this is just kind of like all open. So one of the things you want to be careful is, yes, we can build out here. It's just if we are going to build out here, we got to do this. And no matter, like, even if you build outwards like this, you gotta add stuff to the top, and it's tough to get time to do that. It's helpful if you have, you know, a couple teammates who really know what they're building. But if you don't, it's gonna be, you're gonna have a tough time doing it all by yourself. Just gonna quickly destroy this roof here. No, I'm not. So we got the ledge here. I mean, this trap tunnel itself will probably be the first trap tunnel you build. They're gonna last probably 9 times out of 10 that I've noticed. And you don't build it up against this cliff. So I know I put wall launchers just on the side of a stone thing that was already here, but this entire thing, these 4 squares, maybe I should. These squares are all part of a natural hill that spawns here that you can't actually build for. If you try to move this over one, so if you try to make it more convenient for the spawn that spawns dead center, and you try to make the opening to the tunnel here, they'll just beat against and square because this is a natural form, so they're going to run around it. If you block this off, they're going to come around here, which is fine. This is a lot easier to defend than that hillside by far. So coming in here, and a little bit of lag there. So just building your trap tunnel here will be more than enough. We're going to only do this 3 squares long because 3 squares is a magic number and everything. If you're super worried about it, you can put some wall launchers. It's not an issue. Again, we could put dynamo here. The reason I want to put a dynamo here is because I want to stagger any propanes that are potentially here. So dynamos have a lot of impact, so putting them on the end of our tunnels will do a lot of damage to potential propanes or propane husks, or husky husk in general. Generally, when there's a square like this and you want a lot of impact, a lot of people would opt for a floor launcher. I would not put a floor launcher here to save my life, to be honest with you. If you want to put some damage here, that's fine too. Generally, see, that's tough. That's tough. I think I'm gonna opt for this, just because the first thing that's generally going to be entering the tunnel is probably going to be the little husky husk. So something that could fire off and burn a little bit. Wouldn't be bad. I don't have these fully perked up. I'm not an expert on flame grill traps, so by any stretch, I will not be able to tell you the perks to use on it. I could tell you what perks I have on it. Durability, damage, reload speed, effect duration. Of course, the element is fire, naturally. That can't be changed. Pretty standard overall. I didn't think like a gas trap, yes, you could theoretically make my 1x1s like the gas trap. It's just without the floor spikes, you lose a lot of the killing power from the gas traps themselves. And grill traps really only need that first shot because they don't fire off continuously, I don't believe. Yeah, so it's just a one shot, so you don't really need to keep them on the square. So having them on the front of your tunnels, it's beneficial because the fire damage does deal quite a bit of damage over time, comparable to gas traps even. All right, so now we're kind of hashing it out a little bit more, and this side is still just as complicated as I'd like to remember. So I could create a joint room. The problem with this side is that they spawn both here and here. I do have this tunnel over here. Oh, I just had a strong deja vu moment. Okay. The spawn over there, I kind of want to force them into the tunnel itself. And this is part of the barn, I believe. Yeah, so the barn spawns right next to the... This is part of the pond lip. So I know where the barn is in relation to the pond lip. After vigorous watching of my videos. Okay. I'm not worried about putting stairs here because the wall darts will fire through it. I'm going to put a wall dart here and just say screw it with that one. And we'll pistol it like this. This is going to be a little bit of a broken pistol though, because what we want to happen. So we got to keep this open for enemies that spawn dead on, but we also want to keep this open for enemies that spawn off to the side here that would otherwise come down the center. Especially smashers. If there's a mini boss that spawns on this side, this is not the side you want to be hanging out on. I'll put it like that. Yeah, this is 110% not the side you want to be hanging out on. Try to gravitate more towards the base itself, and let the mini boss just kind of walk through your trap tunnels. But definitely do not. Do not. Well, I guess we could create. Yeah, okay. That's a bit more convenient.
Let's see.
Yeah, definitely do not let them come. Just gonna keep that open. We're gonna put gas all around. Again, I use the double crit rating, double crit damage. If they sit underneath it, it's gonna be more damage than anything else. We're actually going to put dynamos on here. We're going to be using wall darts here because we're going to be putting wall launchers here, here, here. We don't have to worry about pathing because this is the most efficient pathing if they're coming down this tunnel. And they will come down this tunnel if they spawn even remotely off of this. So if they spawn like over here, they'll come down here. They're not going to go through these walls. I wouldn't recommend necessarily making that wall dart out of wood when this is just wide open for them, right? So they're gonna come down here. Oops, forgot to. Generally, if I put one of these little lips down, I'll call it out after. Now these are actually I think I changed these up, but I didn't make a new stack of them yet. Rating. There we go. Nope. Where is it? Did I accidentally put it in my name? Why is that? Ah, there it is. I did change it up. So if you have a balanced attack here with damage reload, crit rating, crit damage, durability, or effect duration, doesn't really matter. These would be the kind of traps that you want to put on the front of your trap tunnels where you can't keep them underneath. So what I mean by that is obviously these wall launchers are going to fire off and they're going to keep them underneath this gas trap. And this gas trap with the double crit rating, double crit damage is going to out damage this reload one. But this reload one is going to have a lot more steady damage, which is something that you want when dealing with, you know, really anything. Any kind of bigger husk, if you will. That doesn't make much sense, does it? I put some floor spikes here, but I'm not too worried about it. This is obviously the quickest route, so if they come down here, this is just a little bit more of a deterrent for them to potentially go around here. And if they spawn, of course, on the extreme here, they're going to be coming down here anyways. So this wall launcher is going to have a lot of pressure. After each wave on this side, you're going to want to come check this wall launcher out because they run out real quick. This is a little bit of a broken pistol, if you will. Let's take a look at this kind of shenanigans. I don't even know. This is more like a club. All right, we're clubbing it. It is very crude as far as my builds tend to go.
Yeah, not possible.
Okay, so it's shaping up now. We're starting to put some stairs around everywhere. We're just going to build up this north side first. And then we'll be all right. Now this north side is very tricky. I know this has been a long build, so stay with me. You can't actually expect the Husks to come up on this square or this square. So what's going to happen is they're gonna spawn. This is where the building is to the north. So you're going to see a little bit of a divot here that we're going to walk down, and then there's going to be a big old building here. It's got a lot of nuts and bolts in it, if you search a lot of the toolboxes. But this is... Actually, so this is all gated off, and it creates like a little bit of a divot here. Oh, I almost fell down, so I'm going to put that there. Creates this little bit of a divot, and then of course the other stuff is up there. So what I recommend is just blocking this off. They can walk up these sides. However, it's so windy that if you just put, you know, tier 1 metal walls, they won't even bother to walk up them. And I'm gonna put these up. Generally, I think it's about 2 squares. I think I did this wrong. Yeah, so it would be 2 squares, wouldn't it? I didn't test that out properly. Yeah, so generally this should actually be out 1 square further. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna... I remember the ceiling pieces themselves. So you won't actually be something here. let's imagine for a second that this is the whole steady rise hill, so it rises from there to here, and this is this is the closest place you could put a floor trap for them. So I'm not gonna completely show it to us, but I do know that if we wanted to build traps here, it would be 2 squares like this before we start connecting with our trap tunnel itself. I'm happy I caught that. And then this gradual hill just kind of goes forward like that. And of course, there's the little lip that we blocked up there. But as far as this goes, this is incredibly easy to do. We're just slapping on any kind of damage trap that will serve our purpose. I don't like to use ceiling drop traps because they cause a lot of frame rate lag. So they're no fun. We're gonna go like this. The wave spawn's usually dead on, so I like to repair this. And you could put a wall launcher here if you're afraid of them just being against it dead on. You could put a wall dart there. Generally, it's gonna be fine. I like to put wall dynamos here. Just if I'm gonna put gas here, it's a lot easier to stun them underneath that gas, and then of course they stay underneath it longer. That's about the only way we could keep them there underneath that gas. Because if we start putting full walls out here and they spawn dead on, gonna path around and then back in potentially on the later waves, because it's just such a dead on, and this is the only way they could go, right? Especially since we're reinforcing this with level 1 walls. Even though they can't technically come up here because this is a natural cliff, they can still beat against the walls and then just crawl underneath these ledges and then up this hill. It's a gradual climb because, again, this is like a gradual hill from this square upwards. But that's just the nature of it. We definitely want to block this off. Just gonna, again, alternate materials. And we start seeing that there's a ton of room on the inside, and we'll get to that. But for now, I just wanna ensure this metal piece isn't gonna be here. Okay, so doesn't really matter what you make these out of. Don't put a lip here. Gas trap there if you wanted to. Leave that up like so.
I see.
And again, this is all angled so that when they come out here, they come back to the base. And that's pretty much the bread and butter of this build. Oh, used the 130 there. Whoops. If they come out, they have to come out facing the base. With the sole exception of these 1x1s, because it's just a half square, or not even a half square. So it's something that they'll walk around generally all the time. Unless it's a smash, or sometimes they'll just beat against it. These little partitions, I always put them to level 2, at least. They like to beat against it, especially if you have fully perked up wall launchers. They will beat against those, and they will love it. If you wanted to, you could put a gas trap on the front here. What'll end up happening is a Husky Husk or a Smasher or a Blaster, something with a little bit of height, will walk up here, and at the very lip, it will activate the gas trap up top. And it'll start to fire off. It probably won't hit Husky Husk, that will probably already be in the tunnel, but it'll start hitting things behind it, and it just causes a little bit more damage to stack up. So it doesn't really hurt if you have the extra materials, but it doesn't, it's not efficient point of materials, but we're getting to that. Again, this long build. I am feeling it. If anybody knows anything about my medical condition, I am not conducive. It's not conducive for me. Whatever. Anyways, so what we're going to do now is actually take out the most troublesome part of the lobbers. Or of Frostnite, that is the lobbers, I should say. And what we're going to be doing here is we're actually going to be making a bowl. But one of the things you want to be careful of is actually making a bowl too close to this cliff, because they actually spawn on top of the cliff itself. So we want to start making it 2 squares away from the base at the earliest on the east side. If you build it too close to the cliff, they will in fact break through the stairs and start walking down the inside of your bowl, and then you'll have trouble. One of the things you want to be super careful of when building the bowl is you do not want to connect any piece of the bowl to the base itself, because the lobbers will eventually say, this is a part of the base. I am actually going to start destroying the base now. So they will start endlessly throwing lobbers or lobber bombs at the part that is the base. Now that doesn't include floors. Lobbers don't care about floors. I don't know why, but I'm not complaining about it. It's easiest if you build up the first layer first. So you kind of see we go around here. I kind of regret putting those up now. And I just want to make sure that I am layering it properly with everything. I came across this problem in our last game too. I think I just left it like that.
What to build?
And then I just covered it up. Yeah, that's what I did. So this is... Yeah, okay, okay. Just want to make sure that they can't fire through here.
Nope.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh joy. This is our lobber shield. Really simple. And it is all planned out so that it will be convenient. The pistol builds, the pistol builds pretty much. The pistol builds are all partitioned so that you can carefully execute this bowl. And then deal with takers later on in the game. Now, I'm not done with this build, and it has been probably about 40 minutes. And this is getting on longer. The longest build I think I've made. From Storm Shield Defense 10, which took me about an hour and a half. That took me. Obviously, this is a multi-directional build. Very tough to do. I don't think anybody's... Actually, I didn't watch it, but I heard Jokester the Mighty came out with a 2.5 hour... Oh, that's not what I wanted. Run. So, judging by that, they probably had a pretty decent build. I've never actually seen my build fail. It's just a propane blew up, and then more propanes blew up, and then we couldn't kind of keep up with the traps themselves because we kept blowing up our trap tunnels. So if we could not blow up our trap tunnels, I would be interested to see how far this build can go. You want to be careful on the corners. This is easiest to do with like 4 people. Everybody generates a lot of wood. Both giggity and non-giggity kinds, so just work together, you know. One guy gets the corners, 2 guys gets the walls, and you do, you know, one side at a time or one corner at a time, because it's a lot easier to do the insides than it is to do the corners, as you can tell. So if you have been paying attention, you now notice that you can run up these sides very easily, and you now notice that there's also these little blips above trap tunnels. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill in these blips with ceilings. Alright? Alright? It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. A little bit complicated. Put some, I'm putting 130s, aren't I? Oops. Did I put 130s or was... No, those were 130s. I derped. That's okay. There's only 2,000 of them left. Oops. Alright, so we got some gas traps. Now we are actually going to be filling in the inside, but not covering the stairs. There we are. Okay, so we have maneuverability now, right? We have a clear difference? Yeah, let's go with difference. I don't know if I want the stairs here, to be honest with you. I think this was just so that I could start the bowl. I see the dilemma. Cover this. You could even do something like this on the front of the bowl. What this will do is it will... Difficult with me, game. If any flingers decide to throw husks, the husk will in fact beat against the bowl and then enter in. But if you put a little bit of a shield, obviously we have some floor pieces or stairs that lead downwards. And those are sometimes only one thick on some places. So if we have a manner in which to block them off from going, like right here, this is probably only one. Oh, that's got a trap on it. This is probably only one. This is only two.
Not possible.
I stand corrected. You don't need wall launchers on these because the only thing flingers are going to toss are going to be the regular husks and bees, and they have the easiest amount of aggro to just trick, if you will. Maybe I should have made that beforehand. I just didn't know how far I was going to go with my bowl, if you will. Block it all off. Oops. That was weird. Go back inside. Climb the ladder of success, if you will. Okay, so the bowl on the outside is complete. We have maneuverability on the inside, if you will. We can actually close this off. What I'm going to do here is add a jump pad. No, not. I'm going to... What am I going to do? I'm going to add a stairs, because then I could still put a floor trap here. Lots of maneuverability. We got walls. Okay, we could... Put a door here. I don't want to put doors here. That's the thing. If you're a console player, you're gonna have a lot of hard times editing. Where PC players are not gonna have a hard time editing really quick. Don't put a bunch of jump pads on top of that rock, by the way. So what this is going to do on the later rounds, there's going to be a bunch of takers, and these takers are going to one-shot, and that is going to be the bane of your 4-player life. I'm telling you what, because those takers, oh god, nightmares. I don't know if we could, yes, I don't even like that. Just make stairs to the top so you could put a cap on top, just in case. But I wouldn't bother with this. There's the going on with the ceiling zappers firing through ceilings that are above stairs. So if you want extra smashers, or if you notice there's a taker and smasher wave, you can just throw up a quick wooden ceiling there. You're not going to damage the ceiling itself. And then you could use the outside ring to get upwards. I just leave this like this because I know there's a lot of players that like mobility. Obviously the key part of builds is, oh, I derped that up, destroy that other one, is the floor launchers. One of the, ooh, almost walked off in the lava. Gotta be careful about that. One of the downsides of the floor launchers, or launchers in general this time, is that they have so much impact and knockback that they're just gonna fling them up. And one of the things I noticed when practically practicing with Minority, Wrathbun, and DJ Nexus is that it ended up tossing them up into the bowl itself. So, I mean, we got the ceiling here. That should be enough to at least knock them down, at least on the foot here. On the inside here, we're just going to fully gas this out. You could do ceiling zappers if you want more instantaneous damage. Especially if you notice a lot of numbers coming through, that's fine as well. I got to craft more. Probably. I've been abstaining from making these until I fully legendary them, but can't be helped anymore, I suppose. And then we're going to just cover this in flame grilled traps. I mean, you could even cover the bowl itself in flame grilled traps if you want to, because flame grilled traps cost all of these materials, which you will have in abundance by the time you hit an hour into the game. And it will only increase at that point. So you could just continuously craft these. And what's going to end up happening is your team comp, let's say you run 2 strikers, an urban assault, and a power base, you know, maximum damage. You're going to be phase shifting away from the objective up these stairs, and then well, okay, except for on this side and the north side, you're going to be going upwards, and as soon as they start popping up here, you're going to be going back downwards. And if you really have trouble with it, you could start building, or you could pre-edit, if you will. So start walking around with a wall on the inside of about 2 hours, and just edit like that, and then go through it. Because they can't fly through doors, but you can walk through doors. Okay, alright. Alright, and once they're finished their dive, you take them out. Don't leave it for somebody else to take out. Unless you're nobody. Don't leave it for anybody else to take out. Call it out. Mark it if you want the team to help you with it. At least on you click it on your right analog stick, it'll mark a target with a little skull over its head. That'll be fine. But as far as everything else, gas traps, floor launchers, flame grill traps, this is a thing of beauty right now. You could put wall darts on the inside if you really wanted to. I would abstain from that. I would probably say put some wall dynamos in front of these floor launchers, just because they're going to be launching off like so. I mean, on these sides you still have plenty of room to kind of maneuver around and then up. Right, so it's being spatially aware of your surroundings that will help you in the long run. This side we don't have much of a choice because it's dead on. And what we're going to actually be doing here is we're going to go to the lip. We're going to go to, this is kind of another one of those ones that goes about 2 squares. We're going to go about midway through it, and then we're actually going to create a 1x1 down here. Usually about the 45-minute mark I start making these as materials start to accumulate between my supply drop and hover turret. And we're just going to make 1. If we make 2, what can end up happening is enemies that spawn later on that come like this, they'll end up walking up and around there, which I guess wouldn't be too bad. Like if we stuck a gas trap here, alright, you could move the trap here, and we're actually going to make this too long. And what we're actually going to do here is we're going to make the full 1x1. This is something that I originally thought might work in this, but as the went on, I realized that it was too much pressure for the wall launchers themselves, and not enough pressure off of the wave by stalling them. So if we do that, this will be enough to kind of stagger the wave on this side, because this side is really short. Because it's so close to the amplifier, or not the amplifier, because it's so close to the burner itself. Let's call the burner amplifier G, if you will, simply because it's nice and convenient. Base is still there. It's going to be very difficult to stop smashers, stop propanes from just looking at it and throwing. That's why the wall launchers are in there. That's why we actually throw them away in here, so that they lose sight of it. If they make it to the second one, propanes generally never make it to the second one, but if they do, this one will take them out, because the first one will have taken out all the small fries. So it's very rare that they make it past there, but if we can put some Vanguard defenses, we can hopefully succeed. And again, that's why we did it on the north side here as well. It's a short side. We have some Vanguard defenses. As we come God, structures are so far behind. As we come over to the west side, it's also a really short side. We can do something of this nature, where it's, you know, the gases and more flame grille traps and even dynamos, if you will. And then we're kind of, oh, not this one, because this one has a wall launcher. I would recommend not putting a wall launcher on this one. Probably just a dynamo would be fine. Even on this one. And then we kind of create like the nice little balance, because gas, you know, deals nature damage, or deals physical damage. So it's good against everything. Dynamos will be effective versus water, and flame will be effective versus nature. So there's really only one that gets left out, and that's flame. That's just the nature of floor freeze traps being absolutely useless, because they're not really a damage trap. Not that, you know, CC is useless. It's just it would be nice if we could combine the floor freeze effect. You know, it would have been much better as a perk, I think. On even on dynamos, you know, it fires off and there's like a 15% chance to freeze targets, or to I don't know, let's call it sub-zero targets, where, you know, they freeze and don't necessarily block other targets, but maybe just shatter. I don't know, like one hit potentially. Doesn't really matter. Maybe you start unlocking perks as you do storm shields, but as far as this build goes, this is more or less complete. You might find on the, I don't want to say it's the eastern side. I can't remember where the cliff is. I think this is the cliff, isn't it? Yeah, this is the cliff. You might find on the cliff side that they are not too far away. They'll probably only be about 1 square or so behind it, so you might actually need to build this a little bit higher. But because this isn't connected to the base in any way, we can absolutely build this, you know, 1, 2 higher. You're never going to run out of wood. So if you want to put this at, like, well, I won't say you never run out of wood. Obviously, early on in the match, you'll run out of wood. But if you want to put this in tier 2, tier 3, so it has some, you know, kick to it, that's absolutely fine. This side actually has quite a bit of a ledge to it as well that they could spawn on. So keeping that in mind when doing it can be helpful. Of course, if anybody has noticed, after all this time, I'm using old school building. That's because I'm an old school gamer. Well, I wouldn't say old school gamer. I'm only 25, but I'm an old school Fortniter. I have the Commander banner. A bit of a flex there. Not that Ohm Master really plays anymore, but I don't really see anybody else who has this this banner anymore, aside from a couple of my friends who got it when it first dropped as well, but they don't play anymore either. So that is the end of my Frostnite build. It is lengthy. It is very hectic. If you have 4 players, I recommend, you know, oh, I forgot to put big deal here is the wall darts. You want to put wall darts next to your wall launcher, because if you put a wall dynamo, it will stun them with the impact, and then the wall launcher will fire off, and sometimes it won't actually knock the husk or smashers or whatever back through these squares. So then it'd just be a waste of a wall launcher launch. So use the wall dart for a little bit of damage there, and still use everything a little bit more efficiently. As far as the ground game goes, that about covers it. We have the inside fleshed out. We started building a little bit towards the outside. I think, you know, as we start getting out towards the 2-hour limit, we could start building more roofs on the outside here, with the option of putting more gas traps as well. It's just as you start building out towards these cliffs, you really want to be careful about your pathing and blocking them off properly. So we noticed that there's the cliff. Oh, I'll just drop down here. We noticed that there is this cliff here that they can just climb onto the roof here. This is an actual cliff in the game. I think it goes like this and then kind of branches out a little bit. There's actually a smasher behind this cliff if you check it out early game. But you just got to be careful when you go too close to cliffs, especially here. Obviously, if they're going to be spawning on the cliff, they could drop down. I don't believe they could actually drop down directly on top of this, but if you're really worried about it, you could just get onto and do something like this, and that'll be more than enough to knock away anything that comes down. And then of course it's knocking them, you know, 1, 2, and then it should hit this and then fall down, and then they'll walk into the tunnel itself. That can be a little bit extra stress on this tunnel. It's not really needed on this particular tunnel just because there's so little traffic that comes through either this little inside cave or the top of the cliff itself. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend jacking this out, just kind of being mindful of wherever enemies pop out. After that, all you really want to do, again, stay away from this spot, especially if there's a mini boss wave.
Oh, sorry.
And you want to just stay inside. You know, if there's takers, jump up, go around. Try not to clog the inside of these with doors. Generally, takers lock on to people. They'll stare at the person they're locked onto. So be mindful of that when putting doors up for your teammates. And you can just kind of create a ring of doors if you will. But the goal here isn't to walk... Like, you're not trying to lose the takers themselves. You're trying to... What am I trying to say here? You're trying to just stop them from one-shotting you, essentially. This isn't something you could push back. Like, you have to kill the takers. If you don't kill the takers, they'll kill one of your teammates. You can't just run away and then say, oh, so-and-so, watch out, right? Like, be a good teammate, watch out for your teammates. And hopefully with this build, you can start pushing, you know, the 1.5 hour, 2 hour limit, of course, depending on your level. And of course, your traps, and depending on your class, you know, collaboration with your teammates. These are all things you can watch out for. Oh, forgot to put wall darts here myself. Yeah, this is about it. I'm a little bit spoiled. As far as traps go, I have a lot of traps that are max perked, a lot of traps that are I don't really care about ceiling drop traps, to be honest with you. Ceiling drop traps are like the excuse to lag out the game. If you put like 15 of them down and they all fire off, you know, relatively simultaneously, you're not gonna have any frame rate. So I just don't use them. As well as a physical trap, they're not better than gas traps, and on hills they fire off so slow that the zombies are often past them by the time they drop down. So, you know, even what they were meant for as coverage for hills, they aren't really useful, because that three drop tile is useless. It's essentially just a one tile drop. If you start doing 2, you could probably hit some that are a little bit slower, but as soon as you hit that 3, you're missing everything that it activated to try and hit. That could be, you know, that could be useful for smashers, but ceiling drop traps also have terrible damage. So, is it really useful for smashers? You be the judge. Again, as far as traps go, I like, you know, double crit rating, double crit damage. As far as electric fields go, I really don't use them. I think their damage is incredibly inferior to the gas trap, especially in a mode where they both use nuts and bolts. Obviously, the zapper uses 10 and this uses 11. I just think the gas traps are a lot more useful. If you were trapping their spawn, I would say use ceiling zappers instead, just because it's instantaneous. You don't have to worry about them staying underneath it. But again, that's 10 nuts and bolts per each one. That's 10 nuts and bolts you could use on your wall dynamos, on your gas traps, which eventually are going to run out. Even an hour into the game, you're going to start finding like things with 1 durability or so. They'll start to run out real quick. Mindful of your traps. After each direction that they spawn in from, you want to check your trap tunnels. Don't check them in the middle of the wave, but check them out and then move on to the next trap or the next direction that they're going. Let your strikers farm if you have strikers. Let your outlanders farm for you. This was a really nice game mode, guys. I really appreciate Epic kind of going out of their way to make this game mode for us. I think it really helps balances the classes out, and it makes them play honest to their classes. So an Outlander has to kind of gather resources for the team. A constructor has to, do their building, provide a little bit of materials in terms of recycling and sustainability. And soldiers, they really have to, help not only themselves deal damage, but help their teammates deal damage too. The only kind of out of place one is the ninja in these kind of siege defenses, because there's not really a use for them the longer the match goes. Even if a trap tunnel were to break, I would much rather have, a couple of teddies and a grenade from an urban assault and a couple strikers than a ninja slash from a dragon scourge or a smoke bomb. So maybe in the future they'll buff dragon slash and it. I know it's a little bit overpowered as far as clearing out smaller enemies, but as far as keeping up with enemies that are, higher than the level of the player, it really doesn't keep up efficiently. So keep that in mind when playing, when choosing classes. Actually, I'm going to lengthen this one out. It's a little bit more of a deterrent, and I'm just being against this wall and then this wall. I think that's about it. You want to be careful of little red blips on your mini map in the top right. You'll notice, there's gonna be a little bit of a red covering whenever they start beating against things. You'll want to look over there. Don't rush over there. So if you see a red blip and you just rush over here, well, what if there's a propane in the tunnel? What if there's there's a lot of different scenarios that could happen. It could just be a flinger that's freaking out in the tunnel because it can't get out because he moves so slow and he just likes to yell around, and he could just have hit a wall. So that's why you want to put the inside of the walls to tier 2, tier 3 as soon as possible, and then just do it one direction at a time. Whichever directions they attack, start with those ones, and then you really want to get the bowl up as soon as you can. And the blueprint for the bowl is pretty simple. You want to go 2 squares and then 1 square high, and then you start it on, and then you go around. So 2 squares, 1 square high on the east, 1 square high on the north. I think it's 3 squares, 1 square high on everywhere else as well. I'm just gonna double check. 1, 2, 3 high. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so the south side is 4. So east is 2, north and west are 3 squares and then 1 square high and then go up. And then south is 4 squares and then 1 square high and then go up. That's pretty easy to remember because the south side has the pond and the barn on it. So you got to go 4 squares out and then up and then away, because they won't spawn in the pond itself, because that would be a little bit redundant. They'd be trapping themselves, which would be hilarious. But you can't really knock them into the pond and trap them there. They'll just come out of the pond anyways. So keep that in mind when doing it. As far as the build itself goes, that's about it. I know I've said that a few times now, but I honestly think that's about all I could tell you as far as the Frostnite goes. This is... I don't even know what to call this build. I'm just going to call it the Frostnite Bowl. Yeah, that seems nice. Let's call it the Frostnite Bowl. This is the bowl that I wanted to use to solo. Okay. Except I wanted to do little 1 squares, so like this. I don't think that's possible longevity wise with a team. I just noticing playing with Minority, Wrathbun, and DJ that was something that put a lot of stress on the trap tunnels, and it did. I mean, it did what it was supposed to do. It killed 95% of the wave, and then whatever came through, we just killed, right? And it's just, if a propane got through, it's not like the propane blew up, because we were inside. We had lots of mobility down here. We were able to kill it before anything kind of escalated quickly. It's just sometimes, people would shoot at the propane that was coming out of the trap tunnel, and they would miss, and then they would hit a propane in the trap tunnel itself, and then that would explode. And then of course that was no bueno. But as far as the build went itself, it was, it was very efficient. We didn't have trouble with things getting in. We just had trouble of keeping the trap tunnels up for whatever reason. I wasn't really close to the trap tunnels when they blew up, so I don't really know the circumstances. But I didn't see anything fail. I just saw, a couple times wall launchers would run out, gas traps would run out, maybe a smasher got through, and then we'd lose a few walls, but that'd be about it. And they wouldn't be like trap critical walls, so they're walls that we could replace. So we noticed that like anywhere that there's not trap, there's at least 4 barriers of walls between the outside and the inside of the bowl on the ground level. So that helps, if a smasher comes through and he tears through amplifier A here, which is our burner for now, and he charges through, he's going to destroy this wall, because any Husks that's 140 or higher is just going to absolutely destroy a wall with a charge, or any smasher I should say. And then he's going to start charging up here, and then he might destroy this the stairs when he gets up here, and then just kind of keep rolling through or stop right at the lip here. But those aren't critical, right? Like, those are okay to lose, and we still maintain mobility. We can get from the top to the bottom really fast, and after that it's all guns and roses, guys. It's just keeping up with the trap crafting, keeping up with the material gathering of crafting material. Pure communication is absolutely necessary between your trap master and your builders or your farmers. I will be honest, if I didn't have Wrathborn and DJ farming crafting materials and Minority Pharaohs giving me extra materials on the side as well, I would not have been able to keep up with this build. So this build that I wanted to do solo is not possible. Maybe I could kind of put together a skeleton build that could last probably about half an hour, 45 minutes. But it was a lot of fun playing with the guys, and I don't think I want to play that solo, because that's just no bueno. So I'm making this video so that you could see the build, you could try it out for yourself. If you have any quirks with it, any questions, leave it in the comments on the YouTube when I post this. Again, I'm going to be posting all the stuff from Minority Pharaohs, Wrathborn 1, and DJ Nexus. They are great people, and they deserve your love too. I think they're pretty decent people, even though Minority likes to call me candidate, but that's okay, because I am a candidate for success.